Guardian of the Underworld, the Beast of Hades, the Alpha upon Alphas. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Cerberus has finally appeared in One Piece. But in what form and what context, you might ask? To answer those questions, we'll first need a preference that this video will contain spoilers for the most recent chapters of One Piece. So if you're not wanting to be spoiled, now's the time to click off. But to get started on today's video, to get into the real meat and potatoes of everything that we know about Cerberus, let's go over where we get introduced to him and, like I was saying, in what context we get introduced to him. Because the Cerberus theory has been around in One Piece for a good amount of time. I'm thinking about 15 years. Because let me know down in the comments, when was Jaya in the manga? Because that's when we first found out about Whitebeard, and I reckon the theories was starting even. Did I just say Whitebeard? Blackbeard, if I messed up there. But the theories on Blackbeard being a Cerberus, get started over that then, that's probably going to happen a lot. And do you guys go Cerberus or Cerberus? I've heard a few different pronunciations. But for today's video, we're just going to go with Cerberus. The theory behind Blackbeard being there we go, did it again, being a Cerberus has started way back then by the Jolly Roger, the three skulls on the flag. I think that immediately got everyone's attention, and people speculated that that might be one of the powers that Blackbeard has. And then when we later found out that Blackbeard could steal Devil Fruit powers, that theory became more pronounced, and more people were getting behind it, myself included. For the longest time, I thought Blackbeard was going to be some sort of Cerberus creature. It made a lot of sense, but like most things in One Piece, it was probably a little bit too on the nose for Oda. He likes to kind of divert his audience's attention a lot of the time, and he followed through with that. We did not get Blackbeard being a Cerberus. We didn't get anything even. The Cerberus isn't even related to him in any way, unless of course you want to say that Blackbeard's main rival, let's say a certain red-haired cheeky pirate, might have a certain evil twin brother, and that certain evil twin brother might be the Cerberus. But no, he isn't. He wields the Cerberus. Now, Shanks' brother, that we just found out, that is still crazy to say. Shanks' brother is called Shamrock Figureland. He's the son of a Garling, and he's Shanks' older twin brother. Whether or not they're actually twins, or they're something that's called an Irish twin, and that's when two siblings are born within, I think it's 12 or 13 months, something like that. They can sometimes be referred to as Irish twins. But either way, the only reason that theory has any substance behind it is because obviously Shamrock has Irish origins, so that's why people are thinking it. But Shanks's, evil big brother is a very dapper looking big brother, I might add. He is looking fine. I love how Oda's gone. He's like identical with Shanks. Probably more of an insight on them actually being twins and not separated by like a year. He looks identical to Shanks, but he has the more elegant appearance. He looks more like a nobility, which suits him well considering his station in life. But it also goes really well with what Oda might be trying to play with here, because even though Shanks is in the lower realm and he's a pirate, getting in the muck of it all, and Shamrock is living high above everyone, a complete egomaniac, thinking that he's a god and that everyone else is lesser. It's interesting how Oda is kind of giving Shanks more of the depictions of someone who himself is more heavenly, while Shamrock is more devilish in nature. So Oda's kind of showing their true natures through their abilities and their powers. If you wanted some more context on that, Shanks having a technique that's divine departure. Of course, that was Roger's technique, but Shanks has learnt it. Divine in the name. Shanks also has a devil fruit called Griffin. Griffins have always kind of been thought of as nobility because, you know, it's the king of the jungle, the lion, with the king of the skies, the eagle. And it's always been given a very kind of a very distinguished look and impression, the symbol of a griffin. So the fact that Shanks has that while his brother, who is the one that sits on, you know, sits in the heavenly realm, let's say, is the one that literally has a power called, and a sword called Cerberus. He also contains the, you know, the mark of immortality, which from Eames' mouth, from the horse's mouth, is said to be an evil power. So, assuming that does have some ties with the ability that Eam used to domini. I completely blanking on that. I just did a video on it mentioning it. Either way, I'm sure that will come up again on this channel. That is crazy what Eam's doing. And when Eam demonified the giants, he essentially said, you know, become evil. So assuming that has, you know, Shamrock's immortality is, you know, got strong ties with what Eam just did there, he literally has evil power running through him, but has wears the personification of someone who's just noble and someone who is good. So I do find it interesting what Oda's doing there. But let's finally get down to it. I'm sure there's some fancy title and thumbnail referring to the Cerberus, and we've avoided it enough. Let's find out exactly how we saw Cerberus finally appear in One Piece. So Shamrock and Gunko, and if you guys like Gunko, I've got a video on her coming up soon, encountered Loki, the accursed prince of Elbath, who was chained. I'm having a lot of trouble with the C's today. Chained, and Cerberus, but he's chained to the Atom Tree, Yggdrasil. And of course, if I call that, I just like referring to it as a Yggdrasil. It's a fun word to say, and it's just, I love the context behind it. But he's chained to the Atom Tree, and the God's Knights, of course, Shamrock, come down and not interrogate him, but try and get Loki to join their side, because that's just what a boon Loki is in terms of a nation's strength, let's say. So he's a very valuable piece on the chessboard. Gunko goes through, a few panels of torturing Loki, beating the hell out of him, demonstrating a really formidable and versatile arrow fruit powers. But Shamrock, seeing through this, he knows that you're not going to be able to break Loki this way. So he tries to go down a different avenue. But Loki, being Loki, insults him. We see here that Shamrock is very touchy about Shanks being his brother. And he's like, enough's enough. I'm sick of you. It's clear you're not going to join us. So come on out. And he draws his sword that looks very, very reminiscent to Shanks' Griffin sword, and he calls out Cerberus, like he's goddamn summoning a Pokemon. And what comes out of his sword? Lo and behold, a three-headed monstrous dog with a big, three thick spiked collars around their neck. They emerge from Shamrock's sword, about the same size as a downed Loki. And the first thing I immediately noticed behind it is that they have a black ribbon coming around them, implying that Cerberus is an awakened devil fruit, which really calls into question how that's possible, because technically speaking, Cerberus is still just a sword. Yes, Zoan devil fruits are said to have a will of their own, but is that will strong enough to be able to awaken its own devil fruit? Because I always thought that awakening it wasn't just, putting years of experience into wielding your power, but also the conviction and spirit necessary to awaken it. But, I'm proved wrong here. Cerberus has the black the black puff of cloud going around it, signifying its, dominion in being awakened. And it makes me question the relationship that Shamrock might have with Cerberus. Is this been a partnership for a long time? Are they on friendly terms? Is this why Cerberus may have been able to ascend to awakenhood? And it also throws into question, does Shanks' sword, a griffin, have the same capabilities? Has that sword eaten a devil fruit and become a griffin as well? And because we're assuming that Shamrock has one of the 12 great blades, I assume that it's that for, we need to start getting some of them to begin with. But the fact that it's, mirroring Shanks, if that is the case, so was it always called Cerberus? I always love that trope in anime where there's a character who's called a certain name that means something. Off the top of my head, if like a character was named Yuki or something and then they have a snow power, it's like, how does that happen? How are you named after the power that you didn't know you had at birth? I wonder if it's one of those situations, or if Shamrock's power is what made it one of the great swords in One Piece. But he summons Cerberus and he makes quick work of Loki here. He tells Cerberus to attack, and in true Oda fashion, what happens? Does Cerberus, more at Loki and rip his throat out? Nothing like that. Cerberus's 3 heads detach. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they attach from the rest of the body, from the collar up, and then they start spinning like a vortex. Blades come out of their mouth, which makes sense because obviously its main form is a blade. I guess technically this is them in their hybrid form, or at least a version of it. And the tornado Cerberus head blades, say that 5 times fast, zoom in and crash land on Loki. Loki sees it's coming and he's like, I'm not going to be able to dodge this one. I'm not going to be able to withstand this one. And poof, they all pierce him. And Loki, being the big target that he is, takes them a centerfold. And they do a lot of damage to Loki. Like, it puts him out of commission for a while. They then go back into sword. Cerberus then goes back into sword form. Shamrock and Gunko get out of dodge. Shamrock then leaves Elbath to go handle matters at Marie Joie with whoever is currently attacking Marie Joie. Let me know that down in the comments, who you guys think is attacking the Holy Land. I know the most common answer would probably be the Revolutionary Army, but a quick theory that I might explore more in another video: what happens if it's Shanks and his crew? What happens if Shanks saying, it's time to go get the One Piece, means that they need to make a stop at Marie Joie? What happens if the 4th road poneglyph is either in Marie Joie or have the clues necessary to get to the man marked by flames? Just a thought that we might explore more in another video. But unfortunately, we literally just see the one technique from Cerberus, the heads detaching, which is so funny to imagine that, that's how Oda's gone with it. We obviously saw in Wano, Oda loved to get creative with it, and I'm so glad to see this, because it gives not just the world of One Piece, but the powers in One Piece, just that bit of extra touch that just makes it so One Piece unique, so Ichida Oda. We know that, the Brachiosaurus in One Piece being able to take off its head and its tail, the Pteranodon being able to bring its head back to shoot off like a missile. What was the other one? The Sasake's Triceratops. Very similar to Cerberus in this manner, being able to use its frills around its neck to rotate and fly. I love the touch that Oda gives to it all. But let's explore some of the powers that the Cerberus Devil Fruit may have. That is, of course, as well, assuming that it is a Devil Fruit. I know lots of people like to theorize that the mythical creatures in the employ of Een, namely the Gorosei and Shamrock's Devil Fruit, Shamrock Sword's Devil Fruit, might not actually be devil fruits. They might be some sort of otherworldly power that, sorry, that Eam is giving them. Gunko kind of throws a wrench in the works there, throws a spanner in the works, same thing. By she had when she was first on screen as well, essentially, she had her devil fruit. She was given a title panel with her devil fruit's name, which no other gods, knights, or Gorosei have received that treatment. Actually, I'm just trying to think. Were Saint Summers and Saint Killingham, were their abilities given title cards, or were they just, mentioned what they were? I'll have to look into that. But Gunko makes things a little bit difficult. She's a weird character that I can't wait to go over. If not the next video, the video after, we'll see how it goes. But we have Cerberus, and what do we know about Cerberus in myth? We obviously know Oda likes to put his own unique spin on it, but there's a lot of things that Oda can use that we see in myth. We of course see the giant size of Cerberus. In this case, it's going to be tenfold, considering that it's awakened. We know, of course, that Cerberus has 3 heads. A lot of versions of Cerberus give it serpent tails, snake tails. So that could be something that Oda goes through. From memory, in the panels that we see of Cerberus, I don't remember seeing any tails. So that could be something that it has. A little bit like the Chimera and stuff like that. And a lot of versions have Cerberus have poisonous fangs. So whether or not it's the fangs or the serpent tails potentially, we might be able to see some poison shenanigans from Shamrock. Maybe just a small part of his arsenal, kind of like Crocodile. If you remember, Crocodile can take off the covering of his hook, and he has a poisonous hook. We've only ever seen him use it once, but it might be something like that for Shamrock. He can use some sort of poison technique as a trump card. That would be pretty cool to see. I would also love to see Shamrock using the Cerberus's power to heighten his own strength and his own coordination, let's say, because obviously Cerberus has a very, very keen sense of smell. So it'd be cool seeing like one of the heads pop out of his sword and Shamrock tracking down an enemy. Or potentially, Cerberus is said to have a 360 degree vision. He's a Hugo, wouldn't you know it? So maybe, if not having the 3 heads coming out of the sword, maybe having their eyes appear around the sword and then Shamrock using that for extra vision. I suppose in One Piece standards, though, you don't need that much since they all have observation haki, at least any combatant worth their salt in this latter stages of the story. So that, to be fair, that might not be as useful as I was originally assuming. Lots of versions of Cerberus write about the ability to breathe fire. And from when we saw Cerberus appear in One Piece, he seemed to have kind of flames billowing off him a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Cerberus has some sort of firepower. We know how much Oda loves fire abilities, whether they're filler abilities, whether they're devil fruit abilities, whether or not they're normal human abilities that people have orchestrated to have some sort of, fire aesthetic. Oda loves showing fire, so it would not surprise me whatsoever if Cerberus has, be able to breathe fire or have like fire fangs like Pokemon. And that's the power that I bet money on that Cerberus does have. And the last power I wanted to potentially touch on, it's nothing that I've ever seen mentioned in, like, say, books about Cerberus or anything like that, but just my own, headcanon on it all. What happens if Cerberus has some sort of soul ability? It can damage not just your body, but your soul as well, your essence. We know that souls are a thing in One Piece because we have Brook and, of course, Big Mom. And the fact that in myth, Cerberus is the guardian of the Underworld, Once again, a little play on the motifs behind Shamrock's character, the fact that he has the power to guard the underworld, yet he's up on Marie-Joie. I love the touches that he is giving to it. But the fact that Cerberus is the guardian of the underworld, he's said to bring souls back to the underworld that try to escape. What happens, like I always imagine, he's biting and clawing them and bringing them back. What happens if they can do that in one piece to do some extra damage, give the power a bit of extra oomph, considering that this is going to be one of the strongest God Knights, one of the strongest characters in the series. It'd be really cool to see him have that power. Or what happens if he didn't even have to take out the Cerberus form, but just his blade itself can, cut your soul as well as your body, make it a little bit Bleach-esque. I mean, we're kind of getting to that point. I wouldn't be shocked if the next time we see Shamrock in battle, he calls out a goddamn Bunkai. But it would be so cool to see some sort of soul manipulations from someone other than Big Mom and Brooke. It would give Shamrock a tier up, a leg up in battles, and I would love to see that. And, that's everything that I really wanted to go over with the Cerberus Fruit. Let me know down in the comments if there's any abilities that I haven't mentioned that you reckon could be really cool to see. Before I forget, actually, abilities. Cerberus separating into 3 dogs. Not just their heads popping off, but actually separating into 3 beings to kind of get the numbers advantage on an opponent. That would be really cool. And that's not just pulling stuff out of my ass. Like, that is something that is written about with Cerberus, about what, it was said that they could do. They were also kind of like, Cerberus was also kind of the king of the hellhounds as well. And in their, if they went to 3 different forms, they're kind of essentially big hellhounds then. So that would be really cool seeing Shamrock do something like that with his Cerberus' sword. But when do you guys think that Shamrock and Shanks will have their first on-screen interaction? And I'm assuming that it's going to be a fight. And when do you think that might happen? If my theory behind Shanks being the one to attack Marie-Joie is true, then we could be getting that soon. I mean, after Elbath, they're very potentially going to Marie-Joie. I might have to make a video on this, but I spoke about it a little bit in Loki's video that I just dropped yesterday. Go give that a watch, guys. I thought it was quite well done. Really great to be back in the groove of things, to be honest with you. But go watch that, because I mentioned in that I think Loki's next move might be Marie-Joie, rescue a certain Mosa potentially, and that Luffy might tag along with him. And what happens if, I bring that up because it just means we can focus on Marie-Joie because the Straw Hats are going there. But if that's where we see Shamrock and Shanks, Eam calls Shamrock back as, hey, look, your brother's becoming a handful and he's invading, you go and deal with him. And yeah, I would love to see a fight between the two of them. I'd also love to see how Garling, takes the situation. We, of course, saw how Garp dealt with one of his grandsons, facing execution, and his struggle between duty and family. So maybe seeing something there from Garling's perspective about seeing his 2 sons, his 2 boys, fighting it out, and what his perspective and opinion on it would be. That would be really, really interesting. But that's pretty much it for today's video. It was really, really cool going over one of my favorite mythological creatures of all time. The Cerberus, the Hydra. We've got the dragon, we've got the phoenix. They're probably my 2 favorites. I'm glad they got tackled first. But things like the Minotaur, the Chimera, the Manticores, like the Basilisks. There's so many possible things. In the Loki video, I hypothesized things like skulls or Jormungandrs or Fenris and stuff like that. So I think we might be seeing some more, which is kind of ironic from the fruit that's supposed to be the rarest. That is, of course, assuming that it is the Devil Fruit. We still don't know that yet. I might have to go and retitle this video one day. But I've been Jack Cypher. You guys know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe. And it's been a pleasure talking to you guys tonight. Have a lovely day.